McKinsey and Company study, which was done with the OECD, on how the world's best performing school systems come out on top. And what they did is they didn't start off with poor systems and analyze, well, how did they get there, all that. What they started with was, what were the 10 best educational systems in the world? And then they picked 15 other countries to provide an understanding and depth of their analysis. What the University of Tennessee study showed was that students who get more effective teachers have an extreme advantage in attaining higher levels of achievement. They described their work in mathematics, and they described the impact of outstanding teachers as being awesome. They used that word in caps with exclamation points after it. Now, very rarely, I've never seen an academic study use colorful language to describe the results that they got, but that was it. Awesome. And we're going to come back to that point. Students who get a series of poor teachers experience a near permanent retardation of academic achievement. If you get 2 really poor teachers in a row in grades between 1 and 5, there is a high likelihood that the student will suffer a near permanent retardation of academic achievement. Now this is really alarming stuff, to be honest with you. I don't know how to describe it as otherwise. The McKinsey study came up with is a major study, a huge study, and as a one-liner to describe the importance of teachers is a line which the McKinsey company were quoting a scholar from South Korea. And he said, the quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. There's a link between teaching and learning, and it's incredibly significant. Now, what can you quickly gain from the McKinsey and Company study? What clues can you gain? And I'm just going to quickly go through what came out of that experience. The good schools recruit teachers from the top third of each graduating college class. They recruit their candidates for teaching is from the top third. Now, South Korea draws its primary teachers from the top 5%. Finland draws its teachers from the top 10%. Singapore and Hong Kong from the top 30%. The United States from the bottom 30%. And that's the source of the problems in the United States. What they also found out that almost every top school system requires the student first to receive a degree in a subject other than education. So he's got to get a degree in English, mathematics, business, whatever. And then he goes into teaching. And then the teacher training is practical. And most of it occurs directly in his classroom when he starts teaching, and which he is not alone, but his mentors are there and are working with him. Now, the important thing here is that starting salaries for teachers in these successful countries are in line with the starting salaries for other professional programs. So that if you have a student who is a mathematician and a statistical whiz, he really would like to teach, but on the other hand, you go in and start working as an actuary for an insurance company, why making the decision to teach and to go down the teaching road does not mean that he takes a big penalty. Just as an interesting story, when I left the University of Chicago, why I had a choice. I left Chicago in January 1st, 1955, and And at that time, my choices were a possible position at teaching economics at Williams College, which I was told by the faculty there that that was a possibility. It started in September, and it started at $4,400 a year. But I had to live between January 1st and September 1st. The alternative was starting January 2nd, working at Ford Motor Company as an economist, and the starting pay there was $6,000. Since my wife was pregnant, 3 months pregnant, it was a no-brainer. And that accounts for the fact that I ended up in business. But anyway, this is very, very important. And what the major high-performing systems around the world, the conclusion they come to, they'll pay more to get fewer, better teachers than to pay less and get an increased quantity of poor teachers. Now, one of the things that results from that is classroom size goes up. So that in the better schools around the world, classroom size isn't reduced. The actual teachers are actually teaching to much larger classes. It's a mix between what is the optimal way to spend your money on education. Now, we can look to the United States for clues too, and that's what we'll do next. What the studies in the United States show is that years teaching, the number of years teaching, and teaching degrees do not produce effective teachers. If you grade teachers by effectiveness, sheer length of teaching and teaching degrees and your coursework, your teaching subjects do not produce effective teachers. Basic teacher competency tests, which are used in most school districts, do not identify quality teachers. Now, what I want to do, and it's particularly instructive, is to look at the city of Chicago. That's the home city of President Obama, as you probably know. Now, the Department of Education ranks the Chicago public school system. Out of 842 cities that they rank, Chicago ranks 778th out of 842 school districts. Now, a recent study of the competency tests that were given in the state of Illinois show that in the state as a whole, 8% of all teachers failed at least one competency test. In high minority, high poverty districts, the average 20% of all teachers failed at least one examination. And in the Chicago school, 40% of all the candidates flunked at least one basic competency test. Now the prize, the absolute prize for Chicago, was a teacher who failed 24 of the 25 tests that she took. She flunked all 12 tests in the field she was teaching, and she still was teaching. This is a recipe for failure. Now, when it comes to testing, what does show up in the United States is amongst some of the states don't use the basic competency test, but do have more rigorized, standardized competency tests. And they apparently are a more effective way of selecting quality teaching candidates. Now, the question is, what's the situation in the Bahamas? I frankly don't know. One can surmise, based on all the other research, and based on the scores that come out of the public school system, that the persistent low student scores strongly suggest that the average teacher, not every teacher, but the average teacher is ineffective. Now, I have no data for that. There is one quotation that I've used in the past that was taken out of a history book, but the only thing I have is a bit of anecdotal evidence. I happened to be in a meeting between a group of Bahamian executives and the two top executives